episode, we're going to talk about hydraulic wings. Hydraulic wings is what sets Metal Pless apart, and I want to make sure that everybody understands our concept and the advantages of having a hydraulic wing. Hydraulic wings are offered in multiple lengths. We offer hydraulic wings starting at 2 feet all the way to 10 feet. We have here a 2.5-foot wing on a 30-inch high blade. In front of me, we have a 5-foot wing on a Max Pro. Our hydraulic wings go from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and we're even looking at doing a 12-foot wing. Hydraulic wings are an extension of your blade. They allow you to be a lot more efficient and productive. It allows you to do the detail work. It allows you to windrow or back drag. The Metal Pless hydraulic wing concept is the Swiss Army knife of all snowplows. It's an absolute must in snow industry. We manufacture our hydraulic wings out of military-grade CHT400 steel. This gives me a very strong, very solid hydraulic wing that can handle the impacts of snow removal. Using this high tensile steel allows us to build a very strong and sturdy blade, but having it yet fairly lightweight. If this wing was built out of mild steel, it would first of all be very heavy and would also bend quite easily. Furthermore, CHT400 steel also has a little bit of flex. When you hit those obstacles, it allows it to flex a little bit without bending. Metal Pless uses 2 hydraulic cylinders to activate this hydraulic wing. As these 2 cylinders work together, we get a full rotation of 180 degrees of our hydraulic wing. We can be a complete forward box pusher to a complete backwards box or anything in between. Notice how we engineered the way we mounted the cylinder to the wing. There's one on the back of the blade and there's one on the hydraulic wing. The one on the wing grabs the furthest point of the wing, giving me lots of leverage and lots of power. If instead of having a hydraulic cylinder on the wing, we were to operate this wing with a hydraulic motor, we would have a lot less strength than we do now. Having the hydraulic cylinder grabbing the end of this wing gives me that leverage very similar to a crowbar. A hydraulic motor that grabs this center point here does not have the same strength. Therefore, it will allow snow to bleed backwards as you're pushing into heavy wet snow. Only the Metal Pless hydraulic wing concept with our 2 cylinders will hold that heavy wet snow. Our hydraulic wings are protected hydraulically via this relief valve. I want to be able to protect this wing if ever I hit an impact. So if I hit an impact either going forward or backwards, the relief valve will kick in, allowing hydraulic oil to flow from one side of the cylinder to the other, thus protecting my hydraulic wing. To be highly efficient, we need our hydraulic wings to contour the ground independently of the moldboard. And we allow to do this by having this bottom part of the wing to float up and down. We call this bottom part of the wing an abrasion shoe. This shoe is fixed at the back and it is allowed to float at the front within the slot of the wing itself. Depending on the model of blade that you have, you will find a different type of shoe on the wing. On a standard trip edge wing, the float mechanism is in the back as well as in the front. On this one, it allows the entire shoe to ride up and down independently of the fixed wing. This style of shoe floats very differently. It floats as well on the rear as well in the front. We can see it is slotted towards the rear where it can float up and down. On the front, it has another float mechanism that allows it to float as well. If you tend to find that operators are running their blades leaning forward a little bit too aggressively, it is possible to adjust the leaf spring, bringing it further backwards to reduce the amount of pressure on the front of the wings. In some scenarios, people have even removed the leaf spring completely, thus having no pressure whatsoever on the front of the wing. To get the maximum out of your hydraulic wings, it is very important for the operator to run the blade in a certain position. We want the blade positioned perfectly straight up and down where the pin is 90 degrees to the ground. To help operators position the blade properly on the ground, we've added a few options on the Max Pro blade. One of these options which really help the operator are these self-leveling sticks. As we lower the blade to the ground, to position it properly, we want both sticks to be level with one another. If the blade was leaning too far forward, the red stick would be higher. If the blade was leaning too far backwards, the silver stick would be much higher. The goal is to get them as close as possible to being equal to one another. Here's a great example showing the leveling sticks not equal with one another. This blade is currently leaning too far backwards, and as an operator I could see this fairly easily sitting in the cab. I would simply roll the bucket forward, bringing this blade back straight and the two leveling sticks equal with one another. In some scenarios, when the ground is very uneven, it is possible to have one set of leveling sticks to be equal with one another, while the other one is not. That's unfortunately because the ground is so uneven. So as long as you get an average of the two, you'll be fine. Understandingly, we all know that hydraulic wings gets massive impacts and lots of wear and tear as they run up against curbs. So on some models, the HD and live edge models, we added curb runners. Interior curb runner, exterior curb runner. But not all blades have curb runners. On a standard trip edge model, curb runners are only an option and they're not available for every model. As we can see here, we don't have them. So if we were to run curbs tightly, we would cause premature wear on the tip of the wings. Going back to our HD or live edge models, these curb runners really help to increase the lifespan of the wings. Furthermore, they don't need replacing as often as the cutting edges themselves. Quite often, you will replace your cutting edges, but you should be able to get a second and third life out of your curb runners. We said earlier that the hydraulic wing was protected by a relief valve. If I were to hit an obstacle with the hydraulic wing, it would simply bypass hydraulically. Same thing if I were to hit a manhole cover with the wing, it would bypass. However, when it bypasses, I also lose my snow. So Metal Pless came up with a great way to resolve this. On certain models, more specifically HD and live edge models, we added a trip edge on the bottom of the hydraulic wing. The bottom part of the hydraulic wing pivots on this hinge system that we can see right here, allowing the bottom 8 inches to trip if ever I were to hit an obstacle. Looking on the back side of this hydraulic wing, we can see how the bottom trip edge works. We can see how it is hinged at these locations. We can see the coil springs that compress whenever this bottom part hits an obstacle and must trip back. Having this unique technology increases the lifespan of the hydraulic wing. Whenever I hit an obstacle, it simply trips back, comes back to its original position, and protects the wing itself. Finally, another great advantage to this unique technology is if ever I were to push a big volume of snow and I were to hit an obstacle, with this technology, it would simply trip back. As opposed to a hydraulic wing that does not have a trip edge on the bottom, if I were to hit an obstacle, the wing would relief backwards, it is protected, but then I lose all that snow. I must go back and pick up the snow that I left behind. So having a trip edge on the wing does increase efficiency and productivity. The van option is applicable on hydraulic wings that are 8 feet long, the 1026 or the 1228. Both of them have wings that are 8 feet long. The wing has a fold down option at the top of the wing. This fold down wing allows to go underneath the trailers, clearing the snow so that trucks can then back up and have both axles on the ground. Only the Metal Pless Max Pro with 8-foot wings allows the snow fighter to remove all of the snow underneath the trailers to then allow truck drivers to back up and have both axles touching the ground. If you had a shorter wing, you could not do this. Another very unique option that you can have on a Max Pro with a hydraulic wing is what we call the sidewalk option. The sidewalk option allows the bottom part of the wing to float up onto a sidewalk and clear both the sidewalk as well as the roadway in one pass. It's a very efficient tool, especially for municipalities.